Okay, we're live again. Welcome back, guys. Today's actually going to be a Schola Progenium episode. We just had a huge bomb drop in the game. We got the critical missions TACOP changes. I'll go over the critical missions deck. There's a couple videos doing reviews of it. I don't really want to talk too much about that because I'm not actually reviewing the deck. But I do want to talk about the Tacops mission changes because it's really going to drastically change how you play the game. And I think it's going to really affect teams. Oh, God, we didn't even start the music. Let's get that music going. We're playing? All right, cool. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So a couple observations before I get into the actual TACOps themselves. First of all, I'm going to be splitting this up into 4 different videos. I want to spend a lot of time talking about each specific TACOP archetype, so that's why I'm doing so. But yeah, so here's my overall bird's eye view of the new TACOps changes. First of all, I think overall they're fantastic. I really like the changes. I think they're more interactive. I think they actually sat down and kind of looked at the TACOps and thought, okay, so how can players use these TACOps, but how can there also be counterplay to using them? Which I think is pretty cool. It makes the game more... trying to think. Back and forth, I guess. Maybe I would say it. It feels like you can interact with these a lot more. So that is pretty cool. I will say overall, they've been significantly reduced in complexity. Specifically because I want to draw attention to one big change. So how you select your TACOps now has been completely different. So before, you randomly determined out of a deck of 6, which personally I really liked. I never agreed with people who thought that it's unfair. It's like, oh, it's based off random. I don't agree with that at all. I think selecting your TACOP deck was a skill in and of itself. And once you became proficient at it, I never, even with kill teams with bad TACOP archetypes, which historically would be like Seek and Destroy or Infiltration, I never felt like I was in a position where I was just screwed by randomness. It's like, okay, well, correct decision making led me to being able to get good TACOps. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So now, basically, what you do is you look at your faction TACOps and your selected archetype. So, if you're Security and Seek and Destroy, you still are picking one archetype. So you're either picking Security or Seek and Destroy, for example. You're then combining that with your faction TACOps, okay? So you usually will have 9 TACOps to look over, right? Out of those 9 cards, you then select 3. However, you can only select 1 faction TACOP. So they've removed the randomness. But they have limited the amount of faction TACOps you can take. Personally, I don't like this because I liked the randomness, like I mentioned. Also, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of their balance based around doing their faction TACOps. So, yeah, you know what I mean? Like Pathfinders, Void Dancers, Hierotech Circle, Intercession, Vet Guard. God, I think probably half the teams in the game are ideally taking 2, if not 3, of their faction TACOps. So this is going to be a huge disruption, and I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I think it's it's definitely way too early to make an assumption on where the meta is going to go. But I think this is going to really affect the meta. I think the top teams are probably going to still stay where they're at because, well, we don't have a balance update as of this video, so we'll see if any teams get touched. But yeah, the teams with good faction Tacops, it does hurt them. Anyways, all right. So now that we've established selecting Tacops, I think I'm not going to be as long-winded in the other videos, but I will mention when I'm going over the other faction Tacop decks, I will mention this in every video just in case someone doesn't want to watch. Today's video is about security. So for those not wanting or not interested in security, I'll have other videos for infiltration, recon, seek and destroy, same as this. So feel free to just select those videos. If not, let's jump into it. All right. Let me turn down this music a little bit. It's a little distracting. Okay. So I'm going to go over the Tacops first. I'm just going to read them. And then we're going to jump into it, and I'm going to explain something. One thing before I start talking about that. So we have a couple changes to missions, which, again, I'm not going to talk about the missions, but I want you to understand something when you're looking at these cards. Okay? So there's, if you look at the card key over here, there's drop zone and territory. So the dark colors are your drop zone, and the faded colors are your territory, right? Well, the territory is including your drop zone. And you'll notice it's a little bit difficult to see here, but you have your kill zone edges, right? So this is blue and red, and then you have gray, right? And these are going to be your neutral edges. So while we're doing these videos, I want you to pay very close attention to these and then the center line. Because a lot of the Tacops now actually have to do with your territories. So I think people reviewing these are not so much taking these into account on how easy or how difficult it is to score these. So let's jump into this. All right. So number one, we have the legend, Seek and Destroy. This is something that every single security Tacop deck or Tacop faction, you always put Seek and Destroy in your deck. It was just a really easy and consistent thing to get, right? So it's changed now. Reveal this Tacop in the target reveal step of any turning point after the first. At the end of the turning point, if the total APL of friendly operatives within 3 inches of the center of the kill zone and not on a vantage point is greater than that of enemy operatives, you score 1 point. If you do it again, you get another point. Okay, so what's changed here? First of all, you can't reveal it on turn 1. So this is a mid to late game scoring Tacop, typically mid game, but you could also reveal this on turn point 3 and 4 if you feel confident you can score it to keep your opponent from pushing the center. Another thing is you can't do this on a vantage anymore. So if you'll notice on many Octarius maps, let me just load one in for an example. On many Octarius maps, you'll have something like this, right? Where you'll have like the pump station in the center. Most people with Octarius maps are putting the pump station there because it's a pretty good centerpiece terrain. It looks nice and it balances out things pretty well. So a common thing to do, let me just load in my higher tech. Screw higher tech. Sorry guys, I know there's a lot of Necron fans on here. I like higher tech circle, they just suck. So let's do Warp Coven, because this is a really easy example, right? So you have your Immaterial Flight Sorcerer, turn point 1, you move this guy on, and boom. This is a really consistent APL 3 guy. Harlequins do this too, and you're getting a very safe point for central control. This is a very common tactic, right? Usually it's with a fly guy, but I mean, most factions have the movement to get a guy up here, right? And there's often a vantage, because the center is just a good place for a vantage, usually, when you're designing a map. So anyways, you can't do that anymore. You have to be on the ground. So that's something to keep in mind. So overall, this was a pretty big nerf to central control. Secure center line. So reveal this Tacop in the target reveal step of any turn after the first. So again, mid to late game scoring Tacop. At the end of any turning point, if the total APL of friendly operatives on the center line is not on a vantage point is greater than that of enemy operatives, you score 1 point. If you do it again, score another point. So going back to what I was saying, that center line, so that's like here, that's here, and it's diagonal here, right? So there's a couple things you need to really think about. First of all, can't do it on advantage. That's something pretty consistent with like most of the faction Tacops now, unless there's specifically stuff that interacts with either terrain or vantage points. So anyways, so you have your line. First of all, the model has to be touching the center line. Okay? That's kind of a big deal, because this is a very aggressive position on the map, and often you will have a piece of terrain in the center of the map, but usually off to like kind of like the mid points right here, these are usually going to be firing lanes. Same right here, same right here, same right here. You get the idea. There's usually firing lanes off to the flanks in the center of the map. And so this can be detrimental to you, and it can be detrimental to your opponent. So take that for what you want. I think it's really great for shooting factions. If you're playing like Vet Guard, Pathfinders, or like a faction that relies on just dacking people down, I think this is a really good Tacop to take. Specifically for two reasons. It forces your opponent to play aggressively and kind of position themselves on this line. But the other thing is, if you were wanting to score this, it's really easy to, like, let's say we're playing on a diagonal map, just move this guy out here and, like, touch this line, right? This is a really safe position. Usually in the far corners of the map, there's going to be some heavy terrain. Obviously, your local meta changes, and you're going to, have boards in your local area built differently than me. But from my experience, both in my local games and playing on TTS and maps that I've seen like at large tournaments, you're usually going to have some piece of like obscuring or heavy terrain right here. So this is usually, like, the corners are usually a safe place. Likewise, if we're playing the Hammer and Anvil deployment, it's the same thing. And then on the I always call these Dawn of War. I'm coming from a 40k background. On Dawn of War deployments, you're going to be experiencing the same thing. So playing on the far flanks, I think, is how you want to play this Tacop. Because I think it's a lot easier to put operatives in a safe position and score this. Again, they have to be specifically on the line. So if you're a security team, I just want to add this in. If you're a security team, I strongly recommend you start looking at icon units in your rosters. Most of the Tacops nowadays in this critical missions pack are based off of APL, and very few of them have to do with actual mission actions. So it's like control a piece of terrain, control a spot on the map, do something with APL, right? And many rosters will have a character that has a icon ability. So basically, it counts as being +1 APL higher for the purposes of controlling stuff. So these guys are going to be like key operatives to helping you score this map. So again, you look at teams like Warp Coven, for example. This team's so cool. I love this team. Actually don't have a guy representing the icon bearer, but whatever, right? It's going to make you start considering, like, maybe not even taking the Soul Reaper cannon and taking the Rubric Marine icon bearer instead, because now it's like, dude, if you're taking Warp Coven, and I'm just using these guys as an example, there's plenty of teams that have icons, but look at what you're taking with this team. Right? So assume this is an icon bearer, right? This team has 5 APL3 operatives for the purposes of controlling stuff. Like, security is going to be super good for these guys. And trying to hold the line, not the hold the line tack up, but trying to literally hold the line. It's going to be really easy with icon bearers. It's going to really boost up your APL, especially if you have a icon plus a comms, because what you can do is you can move your icon into a position and then throw comms on it. And normally you can't add plus or minus to your APL. However, I don't think the icon counts for that. I think you count as just being one higher. So I think that would technically work if you threw comm APL onto your icon after it activated. I believe that would technically count as 4 APL. Like if it's like a guy like a Rubric or a Zangor, who has only 2. So something to think about. I think this is a really good one. I think this is the new central control, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't like central control now, because it is a mid-game scoring tac-op now. Because usually with previous central controls, you popped at turn 1, you just rush the center and try to get it done on turn 2. And that allowed you to transition into the mid-game and kind of play like either objectives or play more aggressive on the map. Now you have to score it on turn 3 and turn 4, and that gives a lot more counterplay to your opponent. So if you're playing against a person who you know is not going to play aggressive, or if you're playing against a team that you know is not going to play aggressive, I think central control is still worth taking, but I think it's not an auto pick anymore. And I think secure center line is an auto pick. So protect assets. This didn't change at all. So it's still the same tac-op you're always going to look at. I don't like protect assets. I don't think it's a good tac-op. I think it's doable, but you have to kill 4 operatives to get 2 points with this. That's a big ask. Like, even if you're fighting Vet Guard, like, that's assuming the Vet Guard player is going to put 4 operatives on objectives, and you're going to kill 2 operatives a turn on an objective. Like, there's just too much requirement for this, so I think this is a hard pass. Okay, let's go to the next one. Escort Operative. So this is a new one. You can reveal this tac-op in the target reveal step of the first or second turning point. Select one friendly operative. At the end of the battle, if that friendly operative is wholly within your opponent's territory, score 1 VP. If that friendly operative is within 6 of your opponent's kill zone edge, score 1 VP. This is so good. Like, I can't even tell you how good this tac-op is. Or I can't tell you enough how good it is. So, once again, you just have to cross the center line. I believe you have to be wholly, right? So you have to be wholly within. So naturally you're going to want to take an operative with good mobility and durability. So, you know, something like a Space Marine, or like, you know, a really tanky guy, preferably somebody who's good in melee, because he's probably going to get rushed. This is so good. So I think it's very easy to score 1 point on this. I think ideally you want to be taking it on the corner maps, because I think this is the safest that you can score this on. So I mean, ideally you'll be wanting to combine this one with secure center line, and then you kind of create like a little pocket for your guy and just rush him up. And you don't have to reveal this until turn 2. So a tactic that you could do is, if you're taking security and you find yourself on a corner map, what you'll do is you'll split your kill team into 2 little fire teams right here. So you'll have a group over here and you'll have a group over here. And turn 1, these guys run over to a safe position over here. Turn 1, these guys run over to a safe position over here. And that way, your opponent may think or may know that you're taking security, but you've created a problem for them because you can reveal this on turn 2. And actually, you reveal secure center line on turn 2. So your opponent doesn't know which operative you're going to be escorting, and you can kind of decide which side you want to do depending on like which is safer, right? Let's say your opponent deploys a lot of guys over here to stop this. It's like, okay, well, cool. I'm just going to have these guys over here escorting the operative, and you're just going to plop this guy right here, and then turn 3, he's going to just rush this way. So this is a really good operative or attack op. You need to change your playstyle for it, but once you get used to using it, I think this is going to be a staple security attack op. Again, if you want to look at the other maps, so, I mean, you're basically going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be rushing one group over here, rushing one group over here, and trying to be in heavy terrain, ideally. And you're basically forcing your opponent to go, okay, you have to commit stuff to stop this, and I can decide which side I want to deal with. Over here, I would say it becomes less effective on this specific map just because the flanks are a lot closer to the center, so your opponent can react and send stuff either way. So I think depending on the map, it's kind of 50-50 on these style of maps. But I think in most games, this is going to be a really good one. I think if you're playing Into the Dark, I think this is pretty much a guaranteed pick. Yeah, I'm confident in saying that. I think this is a guaranteed pick in Into the Dark. But I don't even know if Into the Dark's a thing anymore because like no one seems to be playing it. Most tournaments are doing like half and half or no Into the Dark at all, and it doesn't seem like we're getting any updates with it. Like Shadow Vaults didn't add anything new, and we'll see if the Soul Shackle box, I assume, is probably coming out in February. See if that adds anything, but I'm really surprised to see no Tacops mentioning Into the Dark. All right, let's continue. Hold them back. So this is the new Hold the Line. Reveal this Tacop in the target reveal step of any turning point. At the end of the turning point, if there are no enemy operatives wholly within your territory, score 1. If you do it again, score 2. Okay, so similar to Hold the Line, you have to reveal this on turn 2. So this is a mid-game one. I think this Tacop sucks. I don't think you want to take this. It just feels bad. So Hold the Line was kind of a contentious pick anyway, because let's look at this, right? So Hold the Line, the original one, not Hold Them Back, required you to keep people from getting 6 inches of your kill zone, right? So and you obviously had to reveal it on turn 2, just like Hold Them Back. That was a pretty okay tack up because it forced your opponent to play really aggressive to try and stop that. Now, in my experience, most of the time people took that tack op, they ended up scoring 0 points on it. Because as it turns out, Kill Team is a very mobile game, and most teams have the ability to quickly get an operative into within 6 of your opponent, or within 6 of your deployment zone, and deny this. So I usually thought that Hold the Line was a trap attack op to take, but there was a couple niche scenarios where if you're playing on corner maps, it's a really good one to take because it was just hard to get within 6. But I think even then it really wasn't that difficult. But now it's like you just have to deny it in their territory. So I think the only scenario where you take Hold Them Back is if you're playing an aggressive team like Harlequins or Intercession or some really quick melee team that your opponent doesn't want to get near, and you're playing on the Hammer and Anvil maps. So where there's not a lot of flanks, You have really deep deployment zones, so you're like pretty much just sprinting just to get up to the center of the board. This style of map is a pretty good map to take Hold Them Back on. And maybe you could even argue that like shooty teams could take it on this, but I think the other maps, like you look at the Dawn of War style maps, I wouldn't take Hold the Line on this. And then I would definitely not take it on this. It's like laughably easy to get it on corner maps. So, yeah, I think Hold the Line is bad. And then, you know it, you love it, Seize Ground surprisingly did not change. I'm really shocked about this. Yeah, it's exactly the same as it was before. This is really good. You're always going to take it. I don't really have much to add to that. You always took it before because Seize Ground and Central... God, I can't speak. Let's try that again. Seize Ground and Central Control were always like really consistent Tacops to get. Like it was pretty easy to get 4 points every game with those two Tacops, and I think that's gonna be the way to go forward. So let's talk about what Tacops are you selecting now. Okay, so I am going to assume that you're taking one faction Tacop because most teams in the game have at least one Tacop that their team is really good at scoring, so you're going to be taking that. You could argue, well, Austin, there's compendium teams that don't have it. You know what? I'm sorry, but I don't consider compendium teams actual teams. Controversial opinion there. They're just not designed for the game. They were a way to get people playing the game when the game first started. But I think in this current day and age, like, can you win with compendium teams? Yeah, absolutely. I got my ass kicked by freaking Plague Marines the other day when I was running my Hunter Clade. But I don't think they're designed for the game, so I'm not really going to talk about them. Anyways, so what are you selecting if you're taking security? Okay. You're going to be going probably not Central Control unless you're an aggressive team. So I'm going to be assuming you're selecting 2 out of these 3 Tacops to take. Okay? I think a really good combination is Secure Center Line and Escort Operative. This plays into kind of both the Tacop's strengths because you're going to be wanting to run up the flanks, and you're just naturally going to find yourself in a position to score both these Tacops at the same time. So like I said here, you run one group up here, you're on the line. You run one group up here, you're on the line, so you're ready to start scoring that on turn 2. And you could do the same thing with Operative, right? And this is the same for here. I think if you're running the Hammer and Anvil maps, so just to explain the lingo that I use. So this is Dawn of War, this is Hammer and Anvil, and this is Spearhead. Or no, I think this is Vanguard. These are 40k terms for deployment maps. Anyways, if you're running Hammer and Anvil, I don't think you take Escort Operative. I think you'll run Seize Ground. So I think these 2 maps, this combo is really, really good. And then if you run Hammer and Anvil, then you run this. If you're not a team that has tanky operatives, so like if you're an Imperial Guard team, I think you just don't take this and you just go Seize Ground Central or Secure Center Line, because typically you'll have last activation when you're fighting other teams, so it should be pretty easy for you to get operatives up into this line. And like I said, if you're running Secure Center Line, do not go to the center. Do not try to hold it in the center. I want to repeat that one more time. Do not run to the center with this Tacop. Okay? That's where all the objectives are. If you look at these maps, all of the objectives are based around the center. So where is your opponent's kill teams going to be? Probably around the center. Okay? So you want to be running to the lines on the far flanks. Okay? When you're running this Tacop. And then seize ground, it's like, you know, if you play a security team, I don't need to explain how to score seize ground. You're gonna score it. But yeah, so really good. I think that's probably all I'm gonna talk about for security. So I'm gonna be making videos for the other decks, so please check those out. And thank you for watching. All right, guys, see you next time.